Good morning. That's not Char.
Oh, geez. We're sharing it. I keep forgetting to change that. We're sharing an account because we have like about 40 accounts. So
Yeah.
rename. Thank you.
How's it going? How's the planning for your auction going, Susan?
Things are going well. They are, yeah.
Good.
I've been working on a lot of videos right now. Our master of ceremonies, Silas, who is always dressed up in the fun suits. He came yesterday and we did some great little short videos describing all the items, and he was dressed up in the different ones so it looked like different days. And
nice.
now I got to pull those together. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, we have almost 120 items, and items are still coming in. I'm not soliciting, in all fairness to businesses, but I'm not soliciting, but they're still reaching out to me. So,
oh, that's
wonderful. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it really is. So, fortunately, all of my sponsorship was done before we had closed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But even that, I've had some increases in that sponsorship too. So, it's been a good thing.
Jess, do you know how many people we're expecting today?
40.
And we're probably kind of close to that, it seems like.
We have 29 right now, and people joining fast and furious.
Okay, I'm going to give it a minute. And to everyone here in the few minutes that we're waiting to everybody, I apologize for the awkward angle. But I have been in meetings all morning, and I need to plug my computer in and also try to keep my daughter off the screen for a minute because the screens are starting to cause meltdowns. So
I think everyone from our panel is now on.
Thanks, Jess. It's helpful. So maybe I'll just give it one more minute and then we can start.
Good morning, everybody. There's Jessie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jessie.
Yeah.
Hi, Zing. Hi, Kristin.
Good morning.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
So I think I'll get us going just so that we can respect everybody's time. And while I haven't had the chance to connect with Jess and Vince, I think it's really important for us all to just take a minute to acknowledge all of the things that are happening in our world right now and the collision of all of those things, and the fact that I'm sure we're all feeling a lot that we may or may not be able to process and talk about and all of those things. And I think what I would like to do is something that my daughter's preschool is doing right now, because it's simple and it's in some ways personal, but it's also very meaningful. And that is, when she starts her morning, they sort of do circle time. And at the beginning of it, they ring a bell, and each of the children and the people who are supporting the classroom each take 3 deep breaths. One of the things that we've been talking about is that not everybody feels like they can breathe, and not everybody can breathe deeply. And so we've been taking 3 breaths for ourselves and 3 breaths for the people who aren't able to do it. And I think that like, just to me, it sort of transcends so much of our own personal experience, but I think also maybe even brings some hope and some positive energy into what's really challenging. And if there are people who are wiser than me that feel that this is maybe not a positive way to be sort of being with the moment, I would love for you to reach out to me maybe separately, because I'm always learning and wanting to understand how our experiences are reflected in this world. But it's felt like a meaningful one for me, and it's been really great for the kids. So I think if we want to just take a minute and each of us take 3 deep breaths for ourselves and 3 for those who aren't able. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to so many of you who are joining us here today. I really appreciate your time and your support, and all of the engagement that we've been creating. I think originally is the nonprofit roundtable and just offering a space for people who engage in the nonprofit community to connect, which isn't, as you've maybe experienced, solely specific to people who work in nonprofits, but like I said, those who work in and around and intersect, had people from businesses, people from outside the community that have, I think, come in and worked with us, and that's been really wonderful. And today, I'm really happy and would like to offer a warm welcome to a few panelists who we have invited here today to share their experiences about their transition from traditional, what may be traditional fundraising for themselves, and keeping their organizations vibrant through ways that they've engaged with the community to raise money for their organizations until now. So Jess, I apologize, I did not bring up the list of our attendees, and while I know some of you, I should have been more prepared, and I apologize for that. I've been kind of sprinting. You're muted. So maybe we can just, Jess, you're muted. I can't unmute her.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. Sorry, everybody. My apologies, I was multitasking.
No, and I'm sorry to just put you on the spot and ask you to announce everybody. It should be my job, but.
No problem at all. I will not go into bios, and I will leave it to each of our panelists to do a bit of introduction into who they are and their work. But we're very fortunate to have folks from both the not-for-profit and the for-profit community here represented. We'll start with Blair Winans from Rhyme Digital. Blair is the master of Northampton.live, as well as Rhyme.digital, and is an incredibly generous member of our for-profit community. We have called on Blair many times over the past few months, and he has always been incredibly generous with his time and expertise. We're fortunate to have Jesse Cooley here from Big Brothers Big Sisters. They just finished a very successful daffodil run, and Jesse can share some of her experience around that. Heather Diaz from Forbes Library is with us, as well as Priscilla Helweg from Enchanted Circle Theater. They also have had, Forbes Library has had multiple events that have been digital, and Priscilla just had a major fundraiser that was held in the digital space. So we have many wonderful, generous folks here for us to learn from today. And now I'll stop talking. And do you want to jump back in, Kristin, or do you want to just?
Thank you, Jess.
Okay.
Thank you for your support there. I appreciate it. I think let's just jump in, and maybe we can go in the order if we can all remember the way that Jess just announced everyone who's
Blair was first.
All right, just unmuted myself there. So being from the kind of the for-profit, we have a mix of nonprofit and for-profit clients, with our digital agency, and basically we've had a variety of different experiences throughout this. Most of the experience, I know that, we're going to have some panelists that are going to talk to just like their experience, actually doing the process of moving the events online, which I think is going to be really interesting to hear. But a lot of it, the experience that we've been dealing with is, how do you promote those events? How do you, basically make sure that you're reaching, everybody that you can, especially digitally when, previously before COVID-19, you might have, relied a little bit on direct mail or some other means to kind of get the word out about different events. And, basically there's a lot of different resources, and we've just kind of been experiencing things more on the technical and the promotional side of things. And, really, social media has, I don't think I have to say that, you really need to rely on that as part of, your overall plan, pushing things out online. And I think more so now than ever. And, just a little bit of background on our experience, it's really just looking at what do you have to be able to leverage in this time right now to be able to, promote those types of events. And, basically, things like this that we're doing right now, these virtual kind of meetups, and how do you get the word out? And so just a little bit of background. I'm not going to go into too much detail, and I'll try and jump in where I can, later on in the talk. But really, there's I think everybody's probably aware of just utilizing Facebook and Instagram promotions and paid media to be able to go about promoting different events. Just some things that we've found that we feel like are just worth mentioning, kind of throwing out there. Facebook has the ability for you to just also promote individual events. We've actually found that doing boosted posts and doing a little bit more control, boosting the posts and controlling things that way is actually a little bit more effective of a method in terms of just like cost and utilizing your budget rather than promoting an event directly. That we've just been seeing the costs are just significantly higher rather than just kind of boosting some things on your own. Just some, really leveraging obviously your email list and being able to, make sure that that's, you're really setting some things up. What we found is just, reminding people, setting up, we work a lot with MailChimp, and what they have is an automation feature, and being able to take advantage of that and really figuring out how you can, send emails out to about different events to your email list, and then basically setting up, automated follow-ups and things like that that can help you, remind people up until, the moment of the event that this is happening. And people just have so many things kind of flying at them in this time, that obviously that, everybody needs a little bit of a push in that direction. Some other things that we've just, found in terms of just like cost effectiveness, in terms of being able to get the word out too, like, a lot of social media, obviously, that I just talked about, like, the boosted posts on Facebook, but don't overlook things like Google display ads and things like that, because there's, it's really just, we've been looking for a lot of our clients right now, just what's the biggest bang for your buck in terms of like getting the message out. And, it's usually going to be a mix of different things, but we found that, the Google's got a lot more bang for your buck in terms of the display ads and things like that, versus social media. It seems like that, there's a lot of ways to go about things, and that's really just what we've found throughout all of this is this, how do we take the limited resources that we have to work with, and be able to utilize them as best we can. But in terms of just some other technical things, like there's a lot of different platforms that are out there for just doing live streaming and virtual events. And I know some of our other panelists are going to talk to some of those that they've utilized, and there's positives, there's negatives. It's, it's really just practice, trying to learn from each experience. I think as we kind of go forward, there's a lot of just things that have kind of sprung up. Like I know a lot of this, have Zoom is kind of like this new thing that just kind of exploded in the last couple months. And there's a lot of other platforms that are basically, specifically based towards nonprofits and fundraising that are, give you the ability to host these live stream events and things like that, as well as just, ones that are just plainly obvious, like, using Facebook Live and setting up, Facebook donations and things like that. So again, I'll leave it to some of the other panelists and to kind of run through their experience and hopefully just jump in with some things that we've noticed more on the promotional side as we've gotten up and running.
Thank you, Blair.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any quick questions for Blair before we transition a little bit into some of the organizational stories?
I just wanted to tell everybody that I'll be watching the chat and looking for your hands being raised. It was Susan had a question for you, Blair. How do you feel about the use of video?
I mean, especially on social media, I feel like it's in terms of promotion, it's really, becoming a bigger and bigger piece, obviously. I would utilize it however you can. You have to remember that attention spans are very, very short. And so what we recommend in utilizing video is try and get the message across in the first 15 seconds, because that's, you really just don't have anything more than that. Like, don't wait until after that. Like, even if I know it seems counterintuitive sometimes to put your call to action like in the front of the message versus at the end, but that's really where you need to put it, because, again, you have to realize in the context of social media that people are scrolling through so much different stuff. How do you make sure that stands out? And then I see here another one, so many different platforms and limited time to post them all, platform the most effective. I mean, I wish I could answer that with, you know, in a generic fashion. It all really is going to depend on audience and, you know, understanding where your audience is, you know, and getting the most value out of it. You know, if you're just doing organic social media, like you have to consider, you know, what's the volume that you need to produce in order to get in front of different people, you know, on Facebook and Instagram, you know, you're basically only guaranteed to get in front of organically about, you know, when I say organically, just posting things on your main feed without promoting them, about like, you know, 15-20% max of the people who actually follow you are going to see those things. So you're going to need to figure out how to supplement it with, you know, something else, or figure out how you increase the volume to where, you know, you have a better chance of hitting 100% of your followers like on a given day to be able to get that out. So it's going to depend on the audience and you know, where they're at and what the capabilities you have for the volume of posts and what the content is that you're trying to promote.
Thank you so much, Blair. You can see inside of my life right now. She's sad because she touched the iPad too many times that it's now disabled, and she really wants to watch Beyonce. So I think maybe it's good to move on to our next panelist.
That would be Jessie.
I completely understand. I also want to watch Beyonce, and so I can relate.
I also want to lay on the floor and cry. Just to be clear. And I see a lot of heads nodding. So
yes. Yes. Well, thank you, Jess and Vince and Kristin, for inviting me to be on the panel. And thank you, Kristin, for opening us up the way that you did. It admittedly is hard today, I'm sure, for many of us, just to be focused on something like events and fundraising. It's a little hard for me in my brain and heart to focus on that with everything happening. And yet I know that a lot of us represent programs doing really important work in the community. So we do want to keep supporting our programs, and that's what we're here to talk about, and some of the ways that we can do it. So as they mentioned, I'm Jessie Cooley from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Hampshire County, and we are a one-to-one mentoring program. I know many people know about BBBS. And our largest fundraiser every year is the Daffodil Run for Big Brothers Big Sisters. This was to be our 10th anniversary run this April. Very exciting, and we were gearing up to make it bigger and better than ever as an in-person event. And of course, that was not able to happen in April. And so Katie Lipsmeyer is on the call as well today. She's our Manager of Development and Marketing. We had to just rethink very quickly in March at the start of everything shutting down. And I'm trying to make a long story short here. So I'm happy to answer follow-up questions, and Katie will be too after this call today. But we shifted to a virtual event, and we encouraged everyone who had already registered for the race to stay with us and stick around for the ride of the virtual shift. And then we certainly continued to look for more registrants, and we did find more and more people signing up. What was interesting is thinking about shifting the event. Of course, a road race is meant to be in person. It's about 1,000 people at our race every year. We were actually expecting more this year. So safely, that was not going to be possible to do in person. We knew that people could get outside and run and walk. It's a 5K run, walk, and also a 10K run. So that's still possible and in fact encouraged right now. During quarantine, people are wanting to get outside and do something active and healthy. So we hoped that it would be seen as something that would feel positive to still be involved with. We wanted to be very careful and sensitive to the challenges that people are facing right now. And that was a big part of our thought process too in creating the event. So, I mean, there's always the conversation about, do we just cancel or do we postpone? But we decided to proceed with caution and also with excitement and try to make something really great that people would want to be a part of and feel good about. So we found that that was true, that people really wanted the opportunity to continue supporting a program that they care about and to do something healthy and active and fun right now. That we got a lot of feedback about people saying it feels so nice to be just doing one positive thing. Maybe they're doing other positive things too, but this was one of them. And it would encourage them to get outside and do a training walk or run and gear up for the big day. So we kept the actual event, the virtual event, on the day of what would have been the in-person event, April 26th. And on the day of the event, we had a live stream on YouTube for 2 hours. That was co-hosted by Katie and another person, Jamie Coco from Empowered Social Media. And so they did it sort of a telethon style, and we interviewed people that are part of our program, mentors and mentees, alumni of the program, other community leaders who are big supporters of ours, like Bob Lowry from Bueno Isano, and staff members to highlight the good work that they do and celebrate. So it was a big celebratory live stream party, and there was a feed showing the photos that people had submitted of their walk and their run, and we were able to celebrate them. We pulled a lot of giveaway prizes, which was really fun. So that was different than what we would have done in person, where we have some prizes certainly for top finishers. This time we were able to say everybody who participated in the virtual event is eligible, and we just throughout the live stream we kept pulling the winners of the giveaways. One of the things that was really a bonus of that was that we were able to support the local businesses in our community who have always supported us with sponsorship and with gift certificates and all these things that we normally ask for donations of. And knowing that the small businesses right now are struggling, we decided to take some of the money that we would have used on expenses of the day of event and shift them into the incentives and the prizes. So we spent a good deal of that money on these prizes, and we bought gift certificates, very generous ones, to dozens of our local businesses. And we were able to give those away so people can use them now, and that was really fun. The other piece that was kind of a bonus and something new that we haven't done before was leading up to the event, encouraging people and keeping them connected as they trained. So we would say, if you're out on a training walk or run, post a photo or a video to Facebook, to our Facebook page. And then each Friday, we did a Facebook Live post where we pulled a winner from that week for, again, one of these gift cards to local businesses. So we just tried to keep it fun. One of the things that we did was try to figure out, okay, what can we keep from our event that's been traditional, that people are expecting after they've been coming year after year? And then, because it's a virtual event, what can be new and exciting? And so that was really fun. And we certainly had the bonus of people getting to participate from all over the world instead of only people in driving distance to Amherst. So that was awesome. We had somebody from Norway, we had people in Hawaii, all over the United States. And we had over almost 300 people sent in their photos and their videos. We had nearly 600 registrants total. And the number doubled from the time we shifted from an in-person to a virtual event. So it was all very encouraging. Our sponsors all stayed with us. We were incredibly grateful to them as well. So I think I'll leave it there for now, and then happy to answer questions.
Does anybody have any immediate questions for Jessie before we kick it over to Heather?
I also just want to invite Katie. If you have anything to add, Katie, you're more than welcome. I know Jessie was including you in the conversation too, so.
Yes, I have Clover here with me. So we have a little video going so that I can listen to this. So I apologize if there's any background noise. Jessie did such a good job of explaining things, as she always does. And I will say it was a matter of just reaching out to people, reaching out to our networks, and just tapping into other people's expertise and just asking questions and asking for help. So that's another thing. Just rely on your networks. Rely on your networks. We're all in this together, and we can get through this together.
We did have a question from John from the Hampshire Regional YMCA. Did you need to take into consideration other ways to acknowledge sponsors due to an inability to provide sponsor benefits previously offered? That's a good question.
Yes, and we could probably both speak to this a little bit because, you know, we worked on it together. I will say absolutely, and we actually reached out to our sponsors before we made the announcement public, so to make sure that they were included and we could talk with them, especially our major sponsors, talk with them one-on-one about ways that they would find it helpful right now for us to highlight them, because it is a different climate that we're in and challenges that they're facing. So we took it a little bit case by case. We were careful, for instance, in the Facebook Live posts that we did. I was making sure to do those outside of our big sponsors. You know, I did one outside of Bueno Isano, for instance. They're big supporters of ours, and they were going to be the food vendor at Daffodil. So I did the Facebook Live right there so I could prominently display them and talk to them. And we know that those videos get more reach. So we were certainly strategic in our promotion leading up to the event. And then on the day of, Katie could speak to this. She created the whole script and the program for the live stream and facilitated it. Lots of promotion of the sponsors, both in text, because there was a PowerPoint that was going on the screen alongside the video of the co-hosts. And so the sponsor logos were up there, and it was a constant stream throughout the event. Katie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and in preparation for that, we have a benefits graphic that we propose to all of our sponsors. It's just a table saying, if you're a garden sponsor, which is our premier sponsor, you will get this. And if you are a $2,500 sponsor, you will get this, and so on all the way down. And I reworked that graphic to reflect the virtual event, which was very helpful and I think reassuring to sponsors to know that we were taking this seriously and their participation seriously.
Zing is happy to see Clover. I just want to say that out loud to everybody.
We have one more question for Jessie. Do you feel like you hit a sweet spot before some of the virtual fatigue that has now started to kick in? That's from Gina Louise.
GL, what a great question. Hi. That's so interesting, Katie. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We haven't really talked that much about that. So perhaps, yes, I mean, it was something kind of novel to be doing that right away. We did seem to make the decision before other people did it, at least locally, because we were looking for models. We certainly were wanting to learn from other people and realized that that wasn't happening. And so quickly enough, at least for us. So we just moved forward and we figured it out as we went. It's true. I wonder, of course, we have events coming up in this next year in the fall that we're already talking about, trying to figure out if we need to make those virtual. It's looking more and more likely. So maybe that will be different. Then again, we learned some things and now we have more ideas about ways to make virtual events even more fun. We're kind of getting excited about it. I mean, we have to, I guess, right? But we've been realizing it's kind of cool. We have to get over our grief first at losing our in-person events, which we really love. And we know a lot of people in the community really enjoy them. And then we look to, okay, how can we actually make this really engaging, not just like a consolation prize? So I think there's going to be more opportunity to make them great. I'm not too concerned about that.
And just to add to that, I do think that we were running on adrenaline. Jessie and I were moving very quickly, and the rest of our staff too. We were moving very quickly through how are we going to make this happen, and we didn't have a lot of time to think about it, and we just worked. And afterwards, there was definitely a crash that we had from it because we worked so hard during it. So I think keeping that in mind, that you probably will have a fatigue yourself in creating something new and different, even if you've been doing a similar type of event every time, and giving yourself that grace. And then also, like Jesse said, we are in different times. Yes, everyone is going virtual. It is the new thing. It is like everyone's doing it, but that doesn't mean that it has to be boring. You can be creative. And again, I go back to communicating with your networks and finding support, whether it's advice or just moral support.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katie and Jesse, for sharing your experience and your successes and learnings and all the things. And I think next I will introduce Heather Diaz from Forbes Library.
Okay. Thank you, Kristin and Jess, and everyone for being here. And I also want to say that my assistant director, Molly, I believe, is in the audience. She and I work together on a lot of programming, so hopefully she can chime in if I've said something wrong or forgotten something important. So I'm an information services librarian at Forbes Library, and we had a big fundraising event in April. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I should say event. And then also we've been doing a lot of virtual programming in the meantime. So April 23rd was Library Giving Day, which is a national day of giving for libraries. We never had like a in-person synchronous event planned for this day. We always use it as a fundraising drive that mostly happens in a virtual way through social media and through our email marketing. But we usually have stuff in the library so that people can donate in person, and we have promotion of it in the library. So in this year, we did a few things to, reflect reality. And one of which was that we toned down our ask. We had planned to set a goal for $8,000 of fundraising, but we adjusted our ask to $4,000, and we also adjusted the way we asked people to think about giving money and try to acknowledge what's happening, and also acknowledge that like you may not be able to give money, and mostly we just hope to see you in the library in the future. I think even now, looking back on that, I'm realizing like, oh, we thought we would be seeing people in the library a lot sooner than is probably really going to happen. So we tried to have a more caring, compassionate kind of tone in how we were fundraising, with some awareness of the fact that, we are not open right now. We certainly were not open then, and people have many urgent needs that the library couldn't then and maybe can't right now address. So it may not be like the biggest thing on folks' minds. We also sent fewer emails, posted fewer updates. We just kind of toned down our whole campaign because we didn't want to bombard people. And then ultimately we met and exceeded our goal. So it was successful in the sense that we exceeded our adjusted fundraising goal. And I hope it was successful in the sense that we didn't alienate people by asking for money at a really challenging time. So that's Library Giving Day. And another thing I just want to touch on is that we've tried to ferry a lot of our programming to virtual. And that has looked like a bunch of different things. We've tried a lot of different platforms. Like many people were using Zoom, and also like many people were concerned about privacy issues with Zoom. So we've also done some stuff using Jitsi, which is an open source video conferencing platform. We've used YouTube, Facebook. We already had actually like a monthly virtual event that we would do on Facebook. So we've continued to do that. We're the first Friday of the month. So that is coming up soon for June. We do what's called Your Next Great Read Live, where folks can post a movie or book that they've enjoyed recently, and then librarians suggest 3 more. So that'll be happening this Friday from 11 to 1 p.m. on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages if people want to participate. And then we've also had community members who normally facilitate programming in the library move their programming to Zoom, and in some ways that's been really neat. Our writing room, which normally was on Wednesdays and Thursdays in a meeting room in the building that could only have 12 people, now is online on Wednesday mornings and has often had like 20 or more people. So we could have more folks. We could have folks who couldn't maybe come into the library. What else do I want to say? We're also shifting our summer reading program to be completely virtual. So that gives us a chance to accommodate people who maybe have decided they're never going in a public building again. You know, like you don't need to come to the library to participate, but you certainly could once we're open again. And then the main challenge I'd say we've had is reaching people who don't have internet access or don't have a huge data plan on their phone, or just bridging that digital divide. And I think we're still really struggling with how to address that. Normally we try to address that by providing technology in the building that the public can use. So that remains a problem because we know we're missing folks who just like don't have access to things. So I'll leave it there for now, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Heather. Does anybody have questions? I know I have one. Did you all have any conversations around, and this might also be for Jesse and Katie, when you decided to continue on with an event, an online event, did you have any conversations about adjusting the goal of what you were wanting to raise, or did you just sort of, did it take all of your energy to actually pour into the event that potentially thinking about the goal wasn't a part of the process?
Well, we scaled down our goal, the number that we publicly said we were asking for. When we do this fundraising, it's usually our friends group matches it with fundraising that they do in separate events, if that makes sense. So we try to leverage their match. So they also matched less. We just scaled everything down in order to reflect that like we just like shouldn't be asking for so much money at this time. We also, also like in the library's case, we knew that that was in April, and we felt pretty confident of what our budget was going to be in terms of the city at that time moving forward. So I think things were probably less dire than they might have been for some other organizations who are thinking about a fundraising event that is really primary to their annual fundraising.
I could answer that too briefly.
Sure.
We did have to think carefully about our goal. We reduced it from the amount we had set for the in-person pre-pandemic event, for sure. So we reduced it thinking about expecting fewer registrants overall, since we had to shift it so early. We knew that we would have fewer than we normally get in person, and that directly impacts the revenue, of course, for the event. So we did, and then we exceeded our new lower goal by quite a bit. So that was really wonderful and very encouraging. We actually ended up raising over $50,000 which was not the level that we were expecting, for the in-person event. As I said, it's our largest fundraiser of the year. So our goal had been 60, but the newer goal had been 44. So we were very happy with the end result. And really a lot of it was just the thought, and I think many nonprofit organizations must be feeling this now and have already gone through it, where losing an event entirely is going to be really hard on our budgets. I mean, just we don't have that kind of wiggle room in any nonprofit budget, right? So we were unclear exactly, like the dollar amount wasn't necessarily the biggest thing here. We had so many other elements that we were considering, but we also just thought, okay, we just have to do our best and see what happens. And we did our best. And as Katie said, we just kind of tried everything we could to make it fun and engaging and something people wanted to do. And then it ended up really helping us out. So that was great.
That's great. Thank you all. Priscilla, do you want to step in here? Priscilla Helwig is from Enchanted Circle Theater.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome. I want to introduce Priscilla, who this is her first time really being a part of our community here. So a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah, I'm the Executive Artistic Director of Enchanted Circle Theater. We are based in Holyoke, although we serve the entire region, and we are celebrating 44 years as a nonprofit organization, integrating arts and education into all aspects of living and learning, truly. Those of you who don't know us, we work directly in the classroom with schools, with teachers and students, integrating the arts into math, science, social studies, English language arts. We work throughout the community with social service agencies and mental health and physical health, public health communities, integrating the arts into creative youth development and literacy and learning. And we're a professional arts organization, artist run, where we're creating original plays and murals and art installations throughout the community that's really aimed at cultural relevance and social justice and equity and community. And I say it, and my heart is full in what is going on in the world right now. So it's really, really good to be together. So we too just had our big annual fundraiser, which normally it's, we're based in Holyoke, and so our fundraiser is at the log cabin, and normally there are 450 people there, and it is a celebration of art and education and community. And it was scheduled for April 28th. And so we decided really early, we closed the office. Actually, we had a legislative lunch scheduled for March 13th that we canceled. Closed into gear for a virtual event, which is completely out of my comfort zone. So the learning curve for me personally was huge. However, we've been working sort of shifting our, opening up our digital platforms. And so all of a sudden we've been able to really pivot and produce a tremendous amount of arts integrated learning that can be happening at home. With creative hands-on projects and beautiful stories that speak of hope and healing. So we kind of took that energy and ran with it. And on April 28th, we had a Zoom event, still our Sparks event, for 30 minutes. The decision, normally it's a full dinner, but we thought, let's do this in 30 minutes with as much heart and soul and compassion and creativity as we can to keep our, to support the organization so that we can be bringing equity and access to arts-inspired learning. And we did it. Part of our decision And I think, Jesse, you were speaking to this. We really did want to come out of the gate early because we were anticipating, well, I think we wanted to be ahead of the curve, and we wanted to try this out. And as part of the creative community, we felt that our resilience and our responsiveness and our ability to be innovative and to bring our community together would work. And so we had a combination of live and recorded parts of it. And I think one of the things we were really looking to do was to be as interactive as possible. And so I think what surprised me was how active the chat room was during the event. But let me just go back. So leading up to the event, we decided that we really wanted to, in these COVID days of isolation and vulnerability, we wanted to increase our e-blast newsletters going out to the community. So we had a series of 6 different emails leading up to the event. Our e-newsletters go out to 7,500 people. So each one kept letting people know that the event was coming. But we decided to do the antithesis of the scarcity that we were all feeling. And so we were really working with abundance. So our first one focused on abundant creativity. Our second one focused on abundant inspiration, and we were really highlighting all of our staff. The third one was about abundant innovation. And so we were focusing on our teachers and all of our programs that are reaching out to the schools. The fourth was abundant history with our 44 years history. And the fifth was really abundant community, wanting to be sure that our donors and our students and our youth in foster care were all connected. And so it was sort of kind of expanding the circle. That then led up to the event, which started off with a welcome by our fabulous Nicole Wofford, MC and good friend, who was able to thank the sponsors. I think one of our keys was we were really trying to keep the personal connections. And so instead of just thanking sponsors and having a room full of applause, we were really pointing to the personal connections that we have with our sponsors. We have some sponsors who have been generously working with us for 35, 40 years. And so we were able to really highlight those relationships. We then introduced the chat room, and I think from the start of the event, all of a sudden it was sort of alive. So we had 3 people in the chat room responding to people at different times. Johan Rashi Vega, who was our producer and friend at Holyoke Media, he was reading some of them alive. And the more the interactions happened, the more they sort of people participated. So there were 96 people involved in the chat, and many people were responding different times. So it was really very, very interactive. The films that we showed, the first was a view into sort of on the ground level, what happens in the classroom with teaching artists and students at Metcalf School in a dual language arts integration program that we were doing in Holyoke. And it was a year-long program, and so it sort of covered the gamut of 3 different teaching artists, 6 different classrooms, several different curriculum material, and really gave people a visceral experience of what it's like in process to be in the classroom. Very often we'll sort of share the final event, but it's really hard to invite everybody into the classroom. So the video gave that opportunity for people to see what it looks like in action for creative education to be happening. The other film we showed was interviews and an excerpt from our play from last year's Youth Truth Ensemble. Youth Truth being our ensemble of youth in foster care, ages 14 to 24, many of whom have been in over 20 to 24 homes and residential treatment centers through their lives. And several of whom have been with us for 8 years. We're celebrating 10 years of our Youth Truth Ensemble. And what I heard from our friends who have both been to our events and attended the Zoom was that something about the intimacy of being in our kitchens, being in our living rooms, and being able to watch the films that we share right here, it felt in some ways much more intimate than in a room of 450 people. You could hear every word, you got the heart and soul. What I felt would be so missing from the intangible interaction was really experienced by the intimacy of being right there and up close and personal, even in a digital format. If that is making sense, I'm showing my IT ignorance at this point, but one of the takeaways was that it was a very intimate event. And so I think moving forward, we will continue to do some digital events. We were on a Zoom platform. I'm not sure that's what we'll continue with. Our big blunder, and being early out of the gate and being very new to this, our big blunder was we had 290 people registered to participate. We thought that we had room for 350, and at 100 the room closed. And so we had a lot of people who were not able to be there. So that hurt, but we were live streaming on Facebook, and apparently we were able to do that, and we had 2 people on phones leading people to where they could see it live. So as a fundraiser, the bottom line is we also lowered our expectations about what we were hoping to raise. This is our big fundraiser for the year. We are a mission-driven organization, a very lean machine, and so we need this. So we were also aiming for $50,000. We came in a little shy of that, but our expenses were so much lower that we actually came out ahead. So, I think next year, God willing, if we can have a big event, I think we're going to think long and hard about it. My guess is we are going to have a big event, because so much of what Enchanted is about is relationships. And in our room, those 450 people, it's not that there are people with deep pockets, there are people with huge hearts, and we are all there loving our community. But I think we will also do fundraising in this new way. So maybe I will stop there.
That's great. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. There are a few questions in the chat that I had the same exact questions as I was listening. So it seems as though your answers will be meaningful, because there are probably others who are wondering the same thing. So the first question was, how do you recommend to keep different video segments of a virtual event? And Blair, that might be something that you might want to chip in as well, like the amount of time for keeping people's attention and having impact. And then the second question was, and it seems somewhat related, was it difficult to keep a limit of 30 minutes, especially if people may show up a few minutes late? So my question was, did you find 30 minutes to be short or long, which is an intersecting aspect of the question?
Yeah, the overlap of the two feels important. Why don't I start with the second? My sense was I wanted people to be there for the whole time, and if it was going to be more than 30 minutes, you know, that's the bewitching hour for families. We held it from 6:30 to 7. So we figured this, you know, it's either cocktail hour for people with older children, or it's still the bewitching hour for families with children. And so we thought 30 minutes is handleable. What we heard from everyone was that it went so quickly, but it felt so rich. For me, there was a sweet spot in it. But it meant that we had to be really mindful about every choice we made. So I did a 2-minute welcome, and I came in under 2 minutes, for 1 minute and 30 seconds, a welcome from everyone as the face of Enchanted. It's my 40th anniversary with Enchanted right now, so it felt important for me to welcome everyone. Nicole's introduction as to what she loves about Enchanted and thanking the sponsors felt like it had to be really succinct but heartful. She was 5 minutes. The videos we chose felt like they sort of had to hit multiple buckets. So the first video with Metcalf kind of gave an overview of Enchanted, so I didn't have to do that. So it kind of gave the overview, and then it gave a deep dive look into what the work we do is, and arts and learning and inspiring joyful learning. So that was a 6-minute video. You know, you need to keep everything short enough for attention span, but actually, I think Metcalf was a 5-minute video. I then gave a talk about our heart and soul and core values and community and vision for the future and the right here and right now. What are we doing to protect our community? And I was 4.5 minutes. It's, you know, every word counts. You just have to get succinct. We kept the most time for our Youth Truth video, which I think sometimes people understand the work we do in the schools, but it's hard to know the work we do out in the community in homeless shelters and with adjudicated youth and with youth in foster care. So that movie was 8 minutes long, but was so compelling that I think once it started, there was no turning away. And then Rima Dale, a board member and fantastic woman, you all probably know her from NEPR. She did the ask at the end and asked everybody to take out their phones and, you know, with her, and we were sharing, you know, all the information about how to donate. And that information was also coming up through the chat screen throughout. So somehow 30 minutes kept it moving. We kept it moving, and then we ended with a toe-tapping video with beautiful children's faces and smiles and joyful learning, so that there was music to make your donations to. And then bye, everybody. And what was interesting was people stayed online for a while. I think we could have kept it longer for some, but I felt really good about the 30-minute choice.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Oh, I see Jesse asked a question. I don't know if you just saw it.
Yeah, reflection on the virtual gathering being more intimate than you thought is very interesting and inspiring. And it was for me as well. You know, I'm a big hugger. I couldn't hug anybody, but there I was in my kitchen. So, you know, sharing that this is where, when my children were young, they, oh, I'm going to tear up again. You know, they did their homework while I was cooking, and they learned to value good food and good community. So,
you know, honestly, Priscilla, it wasn't a question, as you can see. It was just a comment, and I can actually see it, feel the way you talk about it. There's so much warmth coming from you about the program, and it's like a hug. So it was a good, you do such a good job talking about it and sharing your love. It really comes through. So I can see how that would have worked to be a Zoom.
thank you.
Yes, thank you all. Blair, is there anything that you would like to add along with that, or?
No, I thought Priscilla, that just that explanation was really great, and I think you filled 30 minutes. It sounds like really well. You know, when in on my side, on the advertising side, we have much smaller of a window to work with in terms of getting people's attention. And but when you're talking about an event where you have an active captured audience, there I think it sounds like you hit right on where you should be needing to make a lot of points in 30 minutes, like 5-6 minute videos max, and trying to pull that in. I think it's really thinking it through and having a plan for how each one of those fits into the story that you're telling is much more important than necessarily the length at that point.
Can I add two things?
Yeah.
I think the e-blasts leading up to the event was very important for us because there were opportunities for people to give all along. And I think there were a lot of people who were not going to either choose to go to the event or couldn't get there. But we gave opportunities to give, and our pre-event fundraising was bigger than it ever was. So that was a plus. And then the other point, I think, was the interactivity of the chat room. And that really surprised me. And we have absolutely beautiful statements that we're now able to, they're quotes that are now following up with, every letter that goes out, every e-blast that goes out. Our sponsors participated in the chat room. They were thanking each other for being sponsors. There was a real community feeling in the chat room.
That's great. Thank you so much, everybody. We're a few minutes over 12:30, so I just want to note that if anybody needs to leave, but there's one more question that John has asked. It's a general ask. With many events having silent auctions or raffles as an additional revenue stream, does anyone have experience with available virtual platforms to host an online auction?
Kristin, I had added a comment. This is Susan LaPointe. We're actually utilizing a platform called Ready Set Auction. Fortunately, I had spent most of last year researching for a new donor management system, and it included this particular type of software to support an auction. Our intention was our auction was supposed to be on April 3rd here at 1 Cottage Street in East Hampton, and we usually have more than 400 people attend, and we put it off until the 19th of June, and then certainly realized a few weeks ago that wasn't a reality for the in-person event, so chose to take the whole thing online. And this particular type of software, there's many other platforms, but this one supports an online auction. As far as the creating an e-catalog, your easy bidding opportunities, a raffle, if you've got to support a need, it's got a lot of good features.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Are there any other sort of final comments or questions that anybody has before we wrap up? Again, I just want to be conscious of time.
If anybody's interested, I can look up the online auction resource. It wasn't just for online, it was also for physical, but it could be used for both, that we used at the school where I used to work, and I can reach out to them and have them refresh my memory as to what it was.
That sounds great.
Just reach out to me directly and be happy to do that.
Is there anyone else that would like to say something before we end?
Hello, everyone. This is Vince Jackson, and I am Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to say kudos to all the organizations represented here today who took that bold and daring step to do your biggest fundraisers, your signature events, and do them online in this virtual fashion, and share your learning with us and give us all the confidence as we try things going forward. So congratulations on the successes that you've had, and thank you so much for just sharing your experience with us. And I know a number of us here today will benefit from the path that you laid forward and the ideas that you shared. And I just wanted to say thank you for today.
Yes,
That's all I
thank you.
have.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, everyone. Jess, did you want to?
I just wanted to say ditto to everything that Vince just said. It's every time we have one of these not-for-profit resource roundtables, I am just, it makes my heart explode a little bit with the beauty of our community. So thank you all for being here. And if I could help facilitate any questions to our panelists, you know where to find me at the chamber. I'd be happy to help you out. And I wish you all the best of luck with all of the pivoting that we're doing around here.
And I think I'll close with an invitation. When Jess and I were having our planning conversation about this meeting, we were talking about programming and organizations needing to shift their programming as well, not just fundraising. And what we sort of, in the decision making, realized that having another roundtable that was focused on programming would be helpful. So if there are those of you who would like to speak to that and be a part of our next panel, please feel free to reach out to Jess and myself. We're in the planning process of putting that event together, and we would love to have your voices included in it. So please step forward, and once we close the meeting, feel free to email both of us and let us know that you'd like to be in touch.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And may you all be well and take good care. Thank you. Bye, Zing.
Thank you, everyone. Take really good care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you to the presenters.
Thank you. Have a good evening or a good afternoon.
Well, have a good evening too.
Okay.